Today we're doing an AniLysis again, and this time we're looking at the Howlers. Why am I doing the Howlers? Because I recently did the Escort one, and I tried to find the comment, but somebody somewhere said we should do the Howlers. So I thought, you know, if the suggestion's out there, why not do it? Now, I don't like to be stuck, because I've done like three things from the attack now. I don't want to do that. I'm going to be jumping here and there throughout the series. So this is probably the last time I'm going to be anywhere near this book. But we're going to talk about the Howlers today. Now, who are the Howlers? Why are they relevant to the series? They're primarily in this book, the attack. They are referenced here and there in other books, mostly number 10, the android, where we're going to get some history from. Let's first discuss the context of how they're important to the Animorphs story. So in book 26, the Escort fate is in jeopardy, and there's a big fight between the Elemist and Cryak. They're coming together and they say, right, we're going to have a game, it's going to involve the Escort, and their fate depends on who wins, the Elemist or Cryak. So Cryak chooses his champions, Elemist chooses his. Here's your context quote for that. Cryak and I have agreed to decide the issue by a contest of champions, his against mine. He has named the Howlers themselves, a group of 7. I'm to pit my 7 champions against his. So that's basically the context of them in the Animorphs series. What happens in the book is that they go to this Escort planet, and throughout this book the Animorphs are having a fight with the Howlers. It's not going well, but then they find out how to defeat the Howlers, defeat them in the end, and then that's pretty much the Howlers done for the series. Few name drops here and there, but their relevance to the story pretty much starts and ends at this point in book 26, The Attack. Great book, by the way. So what do the Howlers look like? What's their history? What is it about them that makes them so interesting? Well, that's what we're going to find out now. Firstly, let's describe their appearance. Appearance? Yes, let's describe their appearance. He was not huge, smaller than a Hawkpagia, as big as a large man. He walked on 2 bowed legs with a swinging, almost comic gait. He had 2 arms longer than his legs. The hands were almost human, 5 fingers and opposable thumb, but from the wrists projected a sort of second hand, a claw that could be lowered to cover the back of the hand, or kept up out of the way. This claw had 4 hooked, steel-tipped nails. It looked like there was a bearing halfway up his body, as if the top half of the torso was on a living turntable, allowing the body to turn all the way around and keep the fighting claws in the game. The head was ugly, a slag heap of melted-looking black pebbled skin. The entire creature looked like he'd been formed out of still-cooling lava. Beneath the black, in the cracks and creases of his flesh, were lines of bright red. Within this face were eyes of a startlingly beautiful blue, robin's egg blue, they call it. The entire eye was blue, with the cat's iris a paler shade. So we can all agree that the Howlers typically look like your normal Honda Jazz driver, you know, this hideous malformed creature. And they've got a weird ball bearing for the middle of their body. Yeah, Honda Jazz driver, okay? So that is the appearance. Pretty horrible looking things. You know, you don't want to bump into one in a dark alleyway or in the middle of the A38. What is the history? How did these strange looking creatures come to be? Well, that's where these quotes come in handy, as I'm sure you'll agree. Let's go find out now. The Howlers didn't evolve. They were created. They have a lifespan of 3 years. They have no mature phase. They don't reproduce. They're grown in a factory. There are no adult Howlers. There are also more quotes that we'll see a bit later that imply that Cryak himself, in a way, created the Howlers. But from those 2 quotes that we've got there, we're told, like, my cat is giving me right evils right now. He's giving me the proper Tiggles, it's not that bad. I think he doesn't like the Howlers. I think it was the Honda Jazz comments. I think it brought back painful memories for him. Give me a better look than that. Smile, cat. Try telling a cat to do something. It's a pretty hopeless endeavour, but he's giving me the right evils. It's actually disturbing me, my dear. Can you sort him out? Okay, that's never seen him give me such evils. Right, so there he comes. Come on, Tickles. Up here. Come on. Oh, he's a good boy. There he is. He's a good boy. He's going to disturb my lighting now. Do you want to go outside? Come on. Come on, go outside. Stop giving me evals. Little shit. So from those two quotes, we can sort of establish that they were created in factories. They were built. They did not evolve. What other creatures in this series do we know were built, created in factories, didn't evolve, at least not in any natural sense?
The Chi.
The Chi, and can you think of any others?
The
The Isk.
They were created.
Were they create? I think yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. Anyone else? What would you?
Yes.
There are a lot of creatures in the Animorphs universe that were created in laboratories. One might think it's actually quite common in this particular universe. But regardless, very much like the Chi, the Howlers were created with a certain intent. Now, I maintain that the Chi and the Howlers are sort of mirror images of each other. So you've got the Alarmist up here, who created the Pemalites, sort of formed the Pemalites, and they, in turn, created the Chi. They programmed the Chi. On the other hand, you've got Kryak up here, and then you've got question mark, and they created the Howlers. Who the question mark are? Bleh, is my answer to that. I don't fricking know. French noise. Bleh, bleh. We have no idea. Because I don't think that Kryak created the factories where the Howlers are made, because that would be a direct influence on the world, so he must have, in much the same way that the Elmis created the Pemalites, he must have created some mystery race. Maybe it was the Pon. Maybe it was the Pon. And they created the Howlers, and then the Howlers destroyed their own creators. But that's what we know from that, so what else can we find out? Oh yeah, and there's also the life cycle stuff, so they're a bit like axolotls. Now, if you know what an axolotl is, they are a type of salamander, but they never fully grow out of the aquatic phase. They never grow into adult salamanders. They get stuck in, what's the word for it?
Juvenile?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of the scientific word for it. I used to say it all the time when I worked at the zoo. There was an axolotl there. Something metamorphosis. But they never reach the adult stage. They get stuck in that and then they die as sort of semi-juvenile stage. But that's what the Howlers are. So we don't ever see a Howler adult. It's always Howler juveniles, and they're pretty ugly kids. You can only imagine what the adults look like. Might actually look like the Honda Jazz itself. Less of that. But yeah, they don't live very long, and they're ugly motherfuckers. Okay? So that's what we've gathered from those quotes we've seen so far. They had faster-than-light ships at a time when humans still thought the wheel was a radical new invention. This single quote serves to show us that these aren't like freaking club-wielding orc things with nothing going on in their heads. They're actually quite a smart race. And we do see that as we progress through this book, but this is a solid statement of these aliens are very highly advanced. They were building spaceships before man invented the wheel. Now, there are some further quotes in there that say, well, just because they were doing that so early doesn't mean that advanced now, which is a pretty naive statement, because knowledge is an exponential thing, at least from a human experience. I mean, it's different from alien experience, but knowledge builds upon knowledge. So the more you get knowledge, there's more knowledge to build upon, there's more knowledge to... So anything that has spaceships by the time that the wheel was invented, by this point, should be, I don't know, the Elemist, essentially, some godly thing going on. Maybe humans will get there someday. I don't know. I think Bill Gates is trying. Not quite there yet. He certainly doesn't look godly. Body is not a temple, Bill. Anyway, where the bloody hell was I? One of the other things we know about the Howlers' history is that they were a pretty rough bunch. A bit like the local sundial gang over in Plymouth. You know, hard as nails and they'll take you out, right? But they've got a sordid history of bullying other species into non-existence, yes. And here are some quotes to back that up. Graffin's children and dozens of species were annihilated by Kryak's children. The Howlers had never lost a battle. That's what the Howler Memories and Eric had said. Never. All that we learned was that the Howlers were violent beyond belief, destructive. That they were, in fact, designed and built to be pure evil. There's also a listing at some point, and I'll just reel them off for you now, but we'll get a quote with these names in later for different contexts. But we get a few names of some of the races that they've destroyed, and those are the Graffin's children, Pemalites, Mashtami, Pon, and Nosnave. We covered the Pon recently in a wonderful video. But yeah, they have destroyed a lot of species, and the number is put at around a dozen, so it's not that many. It's not like loads, but a number. I mean, we would be... If we destroyed 12 alien races, we'd think of ourselves as quite a destructive bunch, you know, a bit rough and tumble. So the Howlers they are the rough bunch, you know, the gang that hangs around on the street corner. You don't want to mess with them. But they have destroyed a lot, and the most notable alien race that they've destroyed is one that is important to the series, and that is the Pemalites. A monstrous beam of light sliced the ground right in front of us, like some insane plough tearing up the earth. It incinerated the pink brilopad trees and the huge mushrooms. Then the Howlers came, Eric explained. They suddenly popped out of zero space, thousands of powerful ships. They had come from clear outside this galaxy. The Pemalites had no idea who they were, and they never found out what the Howlers wanted. The Howlers made no demands, they just attacked. Maybe that's all they wanted. To destroy. As we ran for our lives through zero space, we discovered that the Howlers had achieved a special revenge. The Pemalites began to become sick. They began to die. The Howlers had unleashed germ weapons. So not only are they a bit violent, but they've got thousands of spaceships, and they will descend upon a race who've done them no wrong and just beat them into submission. And not only that, but they'll use biological weaponry. And that is what eventually kills off the Pemalites. Okay? Not good. There is something unusual in that last quote there by Eric in Book 10, The Android, and it actually piqued my interest. What does he mean by the Howlers getting a special revenge? A special revenge on the Pemalites. Revenge. What does revenge mean? It means getting back at somebody for some wrong that they've done to you. What did the Pemalites do to the Howlers? Because surely revenge can't come because, I don't know, the Howlers thought, oh, they're running away? How dare they? We must get our revenge on them for running away from us. That doesn't really make sense. Except for maybe in the context of the Howlers thinking that this is all a game, and the Pemalites ran away from the game, denying them their game. So does Eric know from before any of this started that the Howlers are just playing a game? Very possible and probable. Doesn't make sense, but whatever. Because we find out later in this book that he actually hides information from Jake. Why? Because firstly, he's a and secondly, because he doesn't like the Howlers, and he will withhold information that might make the Animorphs think twice about beating the living crap out of them. Eric, as we've covered before, is questionable, and this is one of those. This is another piece of evidence as to why he's questionable, but that's been a prior video, and we're not going to go into that much anymore. But yeah, Eric's a twat. We've established that on many occasions now. I don't think it really needs reiterating. But yeah, special revenge. I think I've explained the context well enough to explain why Eric said special revenge there, okay? Because they wanted revenge for The Pemlight's taking their game away. That's why it's revenge. Because Eric knew. He knew. So at this stage we know that the Howlers are very highly advanced and they've got big ships that will blow up things and they've got biological weaponry. But what are they like physically? I know we've described their appearance, but you know, are they sort of zombie walking everywhere? Are they like Usain Bolt? Well, we'll have a couple of clues just here, okay? You won't defeat the Howlers in one-on-one combat. They are too deadly. You'll need more than your morphs. You'll have to outthink them. And I know them. I know the Howlers. I wasn't just seeing shape and colour anymore. I was seeing infrared heat. I was seeing trails, like the ones your mouse cursor leaves on a computer screen. It allowed me to follow movement and direction more closely. And then, with a shock, I realised I could see through the outer layers of skin. I could see faint outlines of Marco's gorilla heart. Of course, all the better to target vital organs. The robin's egg blue eyes were far beyond human eyes, beyond even hawk's eyes. These were target-acquiring eyes. The Howlers were leaping from tree to tree, like monkeys on steroids. They were simply leaping across the walkways, vine to bush to branch, like people crossing the stream by jumping from rock to rock. I got to my feet, hoping to attack while the Howler was off balance. Except the Howler wasn't off balance. The ball-bearing waist twirled him all the way around, using the force of Marco's blow to spin and bring the now regenerated hand up to a weapon. So not only do they have great spacecraft, but they're also pretty mean when it comes to, you know, fisticuffs, okay? Pretty badass. You don't want to get in a scrap. And as we show throughout this book, yeah, you don't want to fight them one-on-one because the Animorphs will lose. They have to think outside the box somewhat. It can't come down to a straight physical brawl. And they can jump through trees like Hawk Bajir, you know, flying everywhere and all that. And they've got claws everywhere. You'll punch your face off. And, well, they mentioned something there that was quite interesting if you got the last bit. So their waist can spin all the way around, sort of like an owl can move its head right the way around. But also it mentioned something about a regenerated hand. The Howler's hand dropped. The weapon clattered down the stairs, but before the weapon had stopped rolling, the hand was growing back. Yeah, small point, they can regenerate their body parts much like a starfish or something like that. Just thought you might want to know. You know, so if you do manage to chop something off of one of theirs, it'll just grow back. And not like long time, but short time. A matter of seconds. Sloop, like something out of Dragon Ball Z or something. Yeah, pretty fast, okay? But what is their main weapon, you might ask at this point? Well, I'll tell you what their main weapon is. They go, "Rrr." Okay, maybe that's a bit understated. Let's see what the book says about their roar. Will paralyse you and numb your senses. If he gets close, he'll use the needle teeth retracted into his upper and lower jaw. He's not as fast as... Eric, what did you say about paralysing? I interrupted. It's the reason they're called Howlers, Jake. The voice. It was a blast of sound like nothing I'd ever heard before. Compared to it, my tiger's roar was the mewling of a kitten. The wind exploded from my lungs. I scrambled to get up, but I couldn't make sense of up or down. I clawed feebly. Rachel rolled off and I saw that Axe was reeling, running away back up the stairs, weak ant-like hands clapped against his ears, blood seeping between the fingers. So much like a triggered SJW, the main weapon of the Howler is to scream at the top of their voice, regardless of whomever might be nearby or whose ears they're forcing to bleed. It's an ear-shattering scream that might make things explode, much like the Graffin's children, because we've got a pretty graphic scene where the Howlers screamed and these small furry Graffin's children all just popped. Just a boom. Like that bird out of Shrek, just bang. Yeah, not fun. And Axe's ears are bleeding, and then it happens later on, and his eyes start bleeding. It's pretty gruesome stuff. God, I love this book. It is an awesome book. But the Howler, you don't want to be screamed at by a Howler. Yeah, it's worse than like an SJW reeing. It's worse. Would you believe? Christ. Must be particularly bad. But Jake eventually develops a theory on the origination of the Howler. Listen, Axe, the Howlers are a biological weapon designed to kill sentient species. When they were designed, when Craig was coming up with that howl, he'd have fine-tuned it to have an especially terrifying effect on complex, sentient brains. As much as I like Jake as a character and as a person, I suppose, he does jump to conclusions quite a lot in this book. I mean, he hasn't really got any... He's got limited evidence for this. They only attack sentient species. Especially at this point, I don't think he knows that. Is this before or after he got the Howler memories? Because if he... Think about it, when he eventually gets the Howler memory dump in this book, because... Well, no, because he only got certain memories, didn't he? Because the escort would have bought the memories from the Howlers, which we'll cover in a little bit. He would have taken some memories. So, yeah, Jake, he's jumping a bit to conclusions here, saying that the Kryak fine-tuned it to attack only sentient races. How do you know this, Jake? I had a magic 8-ball once. I don't freaking know. But that's Jake's speculation, and I'm just assuming that that's the authors saying, how do we get this message across? Let's just make Jake say it. How does he have the evidence? Fuck do we know, but he'll say it. So, yeah, we can assume that Jake somehow knows this, like he's been told something by Eric, that, hey Tiggles, that the Howlers can only make sentient things blow up into millions of pieces. You know, if Tiggles heard the Howler right now, he'd be like, oh, fuck, does this doesn't fucking affect me? But me, bang! Me against the wall. Tiggles, who the fuck's gonna feed me now? You know, it's about the extent of his worry, but... Oh, and speaking of which, he's at the food bowl again, my dear. And I think that's bad enough. The Howlers, when they're fighting the Animorphs, the 7 Howlers that are on the escort planet, they decide, you know what? Our almost invincibleness and our howling ability, I don't think that's enough. We need more. And what else do they get? Well, the book gives us a list of the things that they've got. He wore a series of loose belts around his torso, and each of these featured a different weapon. Or at least they looked like weapons. Something similar to a Dracon beam, what might almost have been an automatic pistol, knives, small metallic boomerangs, a gun that seemed loaded with darts. He was a walking arsenal. So from the descriptions we get in this book, we learn that the list of weapons that they have, Dracon beam-like gun, dart gun, knives, flechette guns, small metallic boomerangs, some sort of item that burns through doors. It's never named, but I'm just calling it the burning item. And poisonous gas, like from like a gas thrower, like a flamethrower thing. But yeah, they're quite the arsenal, quite a lot going on in these belts that they've got up here. Do these things come with your typical Howler? You know, if we go to the Howler world, if they do have a world, or the creator, the Pon world, I'm assuming that Pon created the Howlers. If we went to the world of the Howler creators, are the Howlers going to be walking around with these belts on with all these little weapons on? Probably not, because we get this quote. We have only ever seen this one group of Howlers. They sold their memories to pay for what they needed here, but they did not choose to buy any other memories. So there's a few things we can gather from this thing that Guide said here. One, that it's the only time Howlers have ever come to this planet. So the memories that Jake receives later definitely came from this group of Howlers, which is important for the plot of the book, because else it would be a massive plot hole. So thankfully it is. That's why this quote is here, to escape that plot hole that would have happened otherwise. Oh Christ. So the Howlers bought something for the mission. Now, throughout this, we don't see them use anything else apart from the weapons that they have on their body and of course their howls. So what we can probably assume from this is they bought these weapons, this array of weaponry and the belts and all that stuff. They probably bought that from the escort. So those aren't Howler originated weapons. It is possible that they bought something else with their memories, What? Probably the only thing I can think of is food and shelter. That's the only thing I can think of that the Howlers could possibly buy. But I'm more inclined to think that they bought this array of weaponry. Just give me all your weapons. Here's a bunch of my memories. Well, trade. That's how I imagine it went. It could be possible that it's as simple as, well, they needed somewhere to stay. We'll give you some memories if we get to rent out this place. Because, I don't know, we've got a few days till the Animorphs are scheduled. So, you know, might as well enjoy our time here before they get here. I don't know, because they must have been there for a while. Because they'd already done all the trading with the escort, apparently, according to Guide. Unless he's a little liar, but we've got no reason to believe he's a liar at this point. So, what do they speak? What is the language of the Howlers? We don't know, my dear. We don't know.
Don't they screech?
Well, they screech, yeah. But also, weird thing, they speak English. Fight me, Chi, the Howler taunted, when he realised his howl would not shake Eric's grip. I was shocked to recognise the language. He was speaking English. Crayak must have programmed it into this bunch of Howlers, programmed them to understand our language and to be able to taunt and question us if necessary. Once again, I hate to be cynical of the Animorphs series and the writers, but it is a kid's book and sometimes it's easier to just give a bollocks explanation for making things easier. But if the Howlers are going around screaming at the Animorphs and trying to kill them, what's the need of questioning them? Why would the Howlers need to question the Animorphs? What are they going to question her about? What did you have for dinner last night? What are they going to want to know? Nothing as far as I'm concerned. They just want to blow their freaking heads off. So why would Crayak give them the ability to speak English? I don't know. It just seems really weird. And if they're speaking English, then the Animorphs might overhear them planning or something like that. It just seems like a complete waste of time. It just seems to be for plot convenience. Not so much plot convenience, but just convenience for the readers so that we can just have an easy way of getting from point A to point B, rather than finding a more long-winded way of knowing what this group of Howlers is trying to say. So yeah, there's that. We don't know the official Howler language. Maybe they do just scream at each other, as Pebble points out. But in the case of this book, and the only time you ever see them speak, they're speaking English. In my previous Chi-spiracy video thing, the conspiracy theory Chi-spiracy, I've talked about how I think that the Chi are essentially a hive mind, and there's a few hive mind races in this book, including the Howlers, and we're about to get into that. But I've talked about how I think that the Chi and the Howlers are mirror images of each other. The Chi have the Chi net, which is basically a hive mind thing where all their memories are fed into one storage space that they can all access. The Howlers seem to be very similar in that they have these shared memories, but in this book, Crayak has to eliminate the Howlers in time that this memory doesn't spread. So if a memory takes time to spread into a population, then it's moving at a speed. Because it takes time. Speed equals distance over time, malarkey. You know, the basic physics, okay? So this thing must be going somewhere. This memory, that maybe there's like a central Howler thing sat somewhere. Like the Taxon Queen or something like that. Was there a Taxon Queen? No, there's the Hive. The Taxon Hive was this big thing. The boss of the Taxons. Maybe it's something like that. Like these memories are fed through to the big man Howler. And so Crayak has to eliminate them in time so that memory doesn't spread. But by the end of the book, there's a single bit of memory that manages to get through in time. So, where am I even going with this? So that's why I sort of think that another reason why I think that Chi and the Howlers are a mirror image of each other. They both share this weird Chi net, hive mind sort of thing going on. But it's a big part of how they defeat the Howlers. They use that against the Howlers. And these are some quotes that tell us a little bit more about the mind of the Howlers. What's truly going on in those heads? Because we know that they're quite advanced, they fly spaceships and all that, so they must have some level of intelligence. But when it comes to sentience and individuality, what do we get given about the Howlers? What do we know? They know they were created by Kryak. They're bright enough to fly spacecraft, so they can't be entirely without minds. The Howlers must have some kind of collective memory. The memories Eric absorbed were of events going back thousands of years and covering dozens of invasions. No biological creature lives that long, and we know that the Howlers are biological because I acquired one, so somehow the Howlers were designed to share a single memory. What these 6 learn here will be conveyed to all the rest of the species. That way all battle experience is available to all warriors. I had expected rage. I had expected out of control violent urges. I felt neither. Instead, I felt indifference. There was no Howler instinct to slaughter. It wasn't anger. That wasn't how they were built. Kryak had been more subtle than that. I had expected the Howler morph to be like morphing some super predator, but the morph this reminded me of most was the dolphin. Howlers were playful. Howlers were having fun. And then I felt something I had never felt before. Some strange part of the Howler brain, like an extra sense. My brain had tapped into a pool of awareness, of knowledge. Rapid, dizzying flashes of memory, horrifying images of slaughter, violence. Not just the Graffin's children, but species after species, planet after planet. And through it all, the massacre of Graffin's children, the slaughter of the Mashtami, the Pond, the Nostnave, and yes, the Pimelites. The Howlers felt no anger, no rage. They don't know what they're doing, Cassie. They aren't adults. The Howlers are all children. So from these quotes we get an idea of essentially what the Howler's mind is doing, what makes them do what they do. Kryak created them to be having fun, playing games, much like, funnily enough, the Pemelites and the Chi and what have you. They were created to be toys and what have you. This is what I mean by the mirror image thing. It's just so weird. It's just the two extremes of innocence, the happy innocence and the, oh fuck, my face just melted off innocence. You know, that sort of innocence. It's really weird and mysterious stuff going on here, but I like it personally. But yeah, the Howlers have what I think Jake refers to at one point as innocent evil, which doesn't make sense. It's an inherent contradiction because they're mutually exclusive. Because evil requires malice and intent, and innocence means no malice, no, not necessarily no intent, but certainly no malice. Okay, that's the point. It's a contradiction in terms, but that's how Kryak has created these creatures, to just be purely innocent. Hey, we're all having a good time. This is basically one big game of Monopoly. Except when they throw the board over in a rage, they throw entire planets into freaking black holes or some shit like that. Yeah, not fun for anyone else, not fun for any of the players of this game. But that's what's happened here. And the whole collective memory thing is, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, knowledge builds upon knowledge, and that's what this is all about. The more stuff that the Howlers do, the more those memories build on top of each other, and they advance at a really fast rate, especially with Hive Mind, when everyone knows everything practically, all the memories are shared, that builds even faster. So yeah, that's how they do what they do. But Jake and the Animorphs use that to their advantage. Because Kryak had a problem. He might have done that many times over the millennia, always keeping the Howlers' collective memory from any taint that might weaken their innocent evil. He had no choice. A collective memory was very useful for spreading battle tactics and experience, but it was a weakness too. Kryak could not allow his murderous children to learn one simple fact, that their victims were not part of a game, but real people with dreams and hopes and loves. Within 6 months, Kryak will send a Howler force to annihilate a race called the Shaft Den. Instead of slaughtering the Shaft Den, the Howlers will try something different. The Elmist winked. They will attempt to kiss them. Kryak will have lost his shock troops, and the Shaft Den will, well, no one knows the future for certain. So the hive mind proved to be the weakness of these creatures. Now, if you look at real life examples, like North Korea or something like that, there's a reason that the leaders of these countries are so intent on maintaining propaganda, from keeping anything bad from seeping into people's minds. Because the North Koreans are, I mean, they're not a hive mind, but it's more hive mind than our society, at least at this point, where they're fed all the same information. They're only allowed to know the same things, okay? And that comes with its strengths, of course, but it also has those weaknesses. As soon as one little bit of information seeps in that you don't want there, that can spread like wildfire, and suddenly you've got a freaking revolution on your hands, Kim. Maybe soon. Let's hope. But, yeah, so it has its strengths and weaknesses, and Jake found that out and used it to his advantage. Again, it's a brilliant book, and I think it does it really well. Hey, Tiggles. And that's how the book ends. So we have this race called the Shaft Den, and because these Howlers have been tainted with this new image of Jake kissing Cassie, they think, oh, that looks like a fun game. And they go kissing the Shaft Den. Now, who knows what the Shaft Den looked like? I'm sure in a future analysis video we shall find out precisely what they look like. But it is strange what the Ellimist says here. What does he say? And the Shaft Den will, well, no one knows the future for certain. What does he know about the Shaft Den that we don't? And I'm going to tell you about the Shaft Den. They're going to... we don't need to know about that. What are you up to, mate? What have the Shaft Den got to do with any of this? Why are you being so sus about the Shaft Den? Maybe that's for a future video of AniLysis. Anyway, I think we've covered the Howlers in as much detail as I'm happy to give you at this point. We've learned about their history, their appearance, their abilities, the sort of weaponry they use, how they related to the Animorphs in the context of the Animorphs story. And I think we've had a blast, haven't we? A very interesting race. I love the book that they're in. I think they're a fascinating alien species. They'd probably be in my top 10 were I to do a list, which I'm sure will happen at some point because top 10s are very popular. And yeah, I really dig them. And I think they're very interesting. They've got a lot of little meanings to them. The whole idea of innocent evil and evil innocence, it's weird. It doesn't make sense, but in a way it sort of does. And I like thinky things, and that's a thinky thing. I like thinky things. And that is definitely a thinky thing. Right, so that is the Howlers. I hope you've enjoyed this AniLysis. If you want me to cover anything else, put it in the comments below. I'm going to stay away from this book or anything related to the Chi, the Escort, the Howlers, because I've covered them now, and I want to go in a completely different direction. So I don't know, let's pick up a book at random. Oh fuck, did I have to pick up the weakness? No, Garatrons, no. The old man who got killed and nobody cared about. I don't know, suggest something to me. Tiggles, what do you reckon? Tiggles? Tiggles? What do you reckon, Tiggs? Do you like his little bow tie? Anyway, this has been... What have you got on your whisker? This has been AniLysis. Thank you very much for watching. See you later.